Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining our DRA Equalization MS-1 training. So we're going to go over a number of topics this afternoon. We'll probably only go half an hour. We won't go the full hour. So we'll do a little bit of an overview of the equalization portal and navigating it, which of course is at ratiostudy.org. We will talk about MS-1 submission and a couple of different topics there. What's changing in 2020? There are only a couple of changes in 2020. So we will run through those. We will talk about how to manually enter in your MS-1 data. We'll talk about how to upload your MS-1 data file from your camera provider, if they provide that functionality. And then we'll talk about how to finalize and send your values to the state. So there are two changes in the MS-1 for 2020. The first is adding the electric energy storage system exemption per RSA 7285. We will take a look at that. We also have some revised reporting for the utility values. So this is going to include the distribution valuation, which you would be doing per RSA 728D, that new formula for distribution. There's also a value associated with other distribution that you're not valuing per the formula, and then a value for generation assets and transmission assets. And of course, the total assessed value, which is what you've always reported. That is the most important value because that is what DRA will use moving forward with equalization and in the tax rate process. So that is the important and that is the required field. For this year, given everything that's going on, the other fields are not required. But they are there if you are able to get that detail out of your system. They are there. But again, the total assessed value is the required field and the most important field when reporting your utility values. So when we look at the MS-1 process workflow, you can start either by doing data entry, or you can do a data upload if your camera provider, such as Avatar, provides you with an MS-1 export, which Avatar does. You can upload that into the portal and skip a lot of the manual data entry. So going along the top, you either do your data entry in the portal, and we'll take a look at that, or you upload your data, which has the additional step of matching utilities. Then when you go to submit, no matter how you got the data in, there are validation checks. So certain fields have to be filled out, certain fields have to match. So all of those will take place. And then finally, you can submit your copy electronically. But that is the electronic submission. That does not mean that you are done. You also have to print out a paper copy of your MS-1 or your MS-1V, which is for your village districts. And that needs to be signed by your assessing officials. So if you're a town, that would be your local board of selectmen, or if you are a city, your assessor or board of assessors. And that is something that's been in place for a while. And it's basically because there aren't provisions currently in New Hampshire law for e-filing on behalf of an entire board. So it does require you to get that form over to your assessing officials so that they can review it and sign off on it as a board. That being said, once you do the electronic submission, your MS-1 is with DRA. If you're getting closer to the tax rate setting time, though, they're not going to be finalizing that so that you can set your tax rate until they get that signed copy to verify that it was approved. So we're going to take a look at MS-1 data entry, and I'm going to do a quick demo in the software here so you can see exactly what it looks like as well. So to do MS-1 data entry, you log into the equalization portal, again, ratiostudy.org, navigate to the MS-1 tab, and click continue next to the municipality or village precinct that you want to do your data entry for. That will bring you into the MS-1 data entry interface. And we'll log in here in just a moment. I just want to highlight on the bottom, you have your controls. So you have save and home on the left. That will, of course, save your progress and return you to the MS-1 homepage. There is save and recalculate, which will save your process and run all of the embedded math. So that'll update all of your totals on this screen, update the maximum allowed under the veterans exemptions. You have your submit button. So when you are all done, you can submit your form electronically to DRA. And again, that's the first of the two-step process. You also have to get that sign off by the assessing officials. And then finally, on the far right, you can view your MS-1 report. So that view report button is how you get your MS-1 out of the system to print off and do your reviews and to get the sign off of your assessing officials. So why don't we take a look here live, and then we're going to talk about how we would do it with an MS-1 XML upload. So bear with me one moment as I switch over my displays. Okay, so I have logged into Equalization here, and this is the page that you'll land at. You, of course, have your sales verification, your questions, your ratio studies. We also have our MS-1 tab over here, which you can also get to by clicking this continue button. So if we go over and we'll go to our MS-1 tab, we're going to see all of the jurisdictions that we have available. Most of you will just be seeing the one jurisdiction that you're working in. If you're a contract assessor, we can get you access to all of the jurisdictions that you're currently working in. And if you are a contract assessor and don't have one of the jurisdictions that you need, all we need is an email from somebody at the town requesting that we add you to their equalization system. So pretty straightforward process there. So we're just going to go ahead and get started. Pretty basic. We'll do Merrimack. So we have not filed. We have nothing in progress. So we're just going to start our data entry. So here's the screen just like we were looking at. So I'm just going to quickly walk through the form. This is a fairly large form, and I'm just going to walk through it pretty briefly. So we've got all of our utilities over here. We'll take a look at that when we do the data upload. You've got a couple of your questions. So the municipality use the DRA utility values. We have our credits and exemptions. So these are all of our veterans credits. They have the amount of the credit that you've adopted with the range over here, the number of individuals, your estimated tax credit, and then your maximum allowable. Disabled and deaf, these have income and asset limits, which are different for single and married. So these are your income and asset limits for disabled and deaf. There are your elderly exemptions and credits, which you break up the number of filers in age group, and then the amounts with, again, income and asset limits. And then we have our other exemptions. So this was the one that was added last year, the optional commercial industrial construction exemption, but the rest of these have been there for a little while. Then we go over to our property reports. So here's where you report your current use, total number of acreage and the valuation. You report your land use change tax. Here's where you report your conservation restriction assessments. So your farmland, forest land, etc. Your discretionary easements, so just the total number of acres, number of owners, valuation, and a description. Discretionary preservation easements. You've got your farm structures. You've got your TIFs, your tax increment finance districts. I think only 20 municipalities have them. But if you do, you simply add a line here, put in your TIF district, when you adopted it, the original unretained. This probably looks foreign to everybody if you don't have a TIF, and most people don't, so I'm not going to go into tremendous detail. But this is where you report your TIF districts. And here's where you report your payments in lieu of taxes. And we've got two flavors here, so you can add a line to put them in. Finally, we have our summary tab. So here's where you record your assessors. and municipal officials. So this will produce the signature lines on your report, these municipal officials. We have our land reporting, and a lot of these are pulling from other places. Current use, we've entered all the discretionary stuff. You have your reporting of your buildings by type, residential, manufactured housing. Got your utilities and timber pulling in from the utilities back at the front of the form. You've got your exemptions here. You have your optional exemption. And here's our new electric energy system storage exemption that we have. And then finally, our total. So this is a summation of everything that we've entered. And you have your net valuation columns here, and it will tell you this is used for the county tax rate, this is used for the local and municipal, and this is used for state ed. If you remember a few years ago, there used to only be 2 values used for the tax rate, but it was the addition of that commercial exemption, which it denotes right here, the commercial industrial construction exemption, that necessitated 3 lines because that exemption applies to the local ed and municipal rates, but not the county or state ed. So there's a couple different values used for tax rates here, so you can trace that math through. Once again, we have our save and home, we have our save and recalculate. We have our help button up here, which is something I'm going to touch on at the end of the training as well, but you can always click on the question mark here to get specific help with the section that you're on. And you have your help button up here, which goes to the general knowledge base for the application. So keep those in mind. I'm just going to go save and home here. So this is going to save all of my progress and return me to the home screen. And now we are in progress. It shows us our last date. And you notice the XML button is not available now because I've already started. So if you're using a data upload, which is what I'm going to show next, and you've already gone in and you didn't want to, you want to use your data upload, just go ahead and delete that. So now we have our XML upload that's available again. So I'm going to switch back over to the PowerPoint. We'll talk about the data upload a little bit, and then we'll take a look at exactly how it works. So if your CAMA system provides you with an export for XML, you can export that out of your CAMA system. I know a lot of you use Avatar. I do know that Avatar has it. So you can export your MS-1 data out and then upload it into the system. And once again, that is only available if you haven't already started. And of course, you can edit the data once you have uploaded it. So it's pretty straightforward. Let me just hop over. So very simply, we upload our XML. We select our file. I just have a test file here. So I'm going to upload it. And now it's going to do a couple of checks on the way in. The first is, does the file say the entity name that you're trying to upload? So I uploaded a file that said it was for Merrimack. I am in Merrimack, so we get a nice check mark. It then runs through and checks your utility name. So as you guys know, DRA has a list of known utilities. They also transfer and change hands pretty regularly. So this is saying what you have here in your upload file matches exactly what DRA knows the ownership of that electric company to be. So check marks here, no action required for any of these. So we have exact matches. If you get a red X, that means we can't figure out exactly which utility it is. And it can be something as simple as this being PSNH, and in your database, it's P.S.N.H. Which wouldn't match up here. So I would encourage you, if you do get any red X's that don't match here, it is productive to go back into your CAMA system and just sync up that name exactly. That way you won't have to do it again when you upload your file. So in this case, everything checks out. If we had some that weren't matching, we would have to pick from a known list of utilities and say, this is the utility that I'm intending to upload. So we'll go ahead and upload that. And then we'll go in and take a look at Merrimack again. So now we have all of our values filled in. And now we can take a look at the utility data entry. So once again, we have a number of different values here that DRA is requesting. Your distribution per this formula, distribution not using the formula, generation value, transmission value, and then your total assessed value. And again, this is the important one because this is what moves forward into equalization and into the tax rate setting process. So again, this is the required field for this year. Just acknowledgement that things are kind of up in the air. Everybody's remote. So this is required. This is the important field. So keep that in mind. I do want to show you here the MS-1 report. So we'll just go ahead and click on that. This will just take a moment here. So here are our municipal officials. So this would be your signature page. You'll notice we have a pretty exaggerated draft watermark. That will go away once you submit your MS-1 for the year. So this is just making sure that the MS-1 that they're signing is the final MS-1 so that the values match what DRA will use in equalization and tax rate. So this is all the same stuff that you've seen in the interface. If you've been around for a while, this looks a lot more like the original PDF or Excel form. So like all the reports in the system, we can go out to a number of different formats. You can go Excel, PDF, Word. Generally speaking, for signing, I would recommend going out to PDF. That will be the easiest for you to print. So that downloads our PDF. And it's a fairly long report, but all the same stuff we just looked at in the application, with the exception that the first page is actually the summary page, which is last in the application because it's the last thing that you fill out. So that's getting the reports out of the system. We can simply close that and we'll be back to our main tab here. And let's just flip back over to the presentation. So we have two more topics here, and then I'll open it up for questions. How do you do the MS-1 submission? Well, it's really straightforward. You hit the submit button. It's going to perform all of the data checks to be sure you've entered all of the required fields, that all of your math ties out, et cetera. And it's going to run you through those data checks one by one. So if it finds that you have a required field that wasn't entered, it will direct you to that required field. You'll fill that in and then try to submit again, and it will continue the check and find the next thing that was required or value that needs to be addressed. So it will go through one by one until you've addressed all of the errors. And then it will prompt you for your e-file certification. So you put in your information as the preparer, first name, last name, and your contact info, and then checking the certification that to the best of your knowledge, this is a true and correct filing. And then you're ready to go ahead and print out that MS-1. And again, that draft watermarking will be gone. That is the report that you need to get your assessing official signature on. Again, the select board for towns or the board of assessors for cities. Once you do have that signed copy, you need to make sure you upload that into the interface. And again, DRA won't finalize your MS-1 until you get that signed copy certifying that the assessing officials have actually seen it and approved it. So I'm just going to click submit. I don't know if this is going to have any errors in it. So it's running through all of the checks now and all the required fields. And if we pass, we're going to move forward here. See, so it's going to move me through. I didn't put in the assessor's first and last name here. So we would simply fill that in, click submit, and this got almost to the end of it. And it would run through and check all of that again. So we'll just save our progress for now, which you can always do, of course. You'll notice you aren't allowed to upload your signed copy until you've actually finished your filing. So once you finish your filing, you'll be able to upload the signed copy right here, and that will complete your process. You can also email it off to DRA if you're having trouble. But again, that finishes the process. It is the same with village districts. The MS-1V is the village version of the form. It's just shorter. It also has the ability to have an XML upload if your camera provider supports that. So that's kind of a high level. There's one other topic that folks might be wondering about. This has not changed. If for some reason you are not able to submit your MS-1 on time, you can request an extension to your MS-1 filing. I know we've seen a couple of them already. Just select your extension reason, put in an explanation, put in the date that you are requesting your extension be held to, and then click submit. And that will go off to DRA. They will review it, and you'll get an email notification of their decision, and you can see the decision right here. So this is really important. If you are not able to submit on time, you need to submit an extension request to DRA. This is also helpful because it helps them prioritize and group for tax rate setting process. So if we know the MS-1 is not going to be in until mid-October, you know that you're not going to be setting that tax rate. So this is a helpful planning tool for them as well as required if you're not able to submit it on time. So I've just a couple other topics here, and then I'm happy to take some questions. We'll just cancel out of that. Okay, so we talked about that submission. The important thing is just make sure you get that signed copy because that will hold everything up. Okay, just a couple more slides here. Just reviewing other information. Importantly, those little blue question marks contain specific information about the page. You can also get to the help page by clicking the help button. We have one of the few applications that I've seen where the help button is actually helpful. It'll bring you to recordings of trainings. It'll bring you to frequently asked questions, information about the MS-1. So it is actually a helpful, or at least I think it's a helpful help interface. You do have a number of resources available to you. There's information on the DRA website. The help button is really the best source these days. You also have your equalization auditor. So that's Linda, Natalie, and Cindy are available to support you with the MS-1. And we have the Axiomatic technical support team, which is available via email or phone or submitting a support ticket directly at support.axiomnh.com. So any way you'd like to reach out to us that way, and I do kind of want to draw the line here between Axiomatic tech support and DRA and the equalization auditors. So if you know what you want to do but can't seem to do it in the application, you're trying to add a utility and it doesn't seem to be working properly, or you forget your username or password, or you're having trouble exporting a report. Basically, if you know what you're trying to do but can't do it, you can contact technical support. We are happy to help you out there. If you don't know how you should be reporting something, or you have a question about the process, or how have you adopted that new exemption, how do you delineate the valuation of utilities, anything that's not technical in nature with the software and is more of a question about the content of the form and how you should be filling it out, that would be a question for DRA and the equalization division there. But both are available to you. And the 2020 MS-1 is available in the application right now. So you are ready to log in and start your filing process if you finalize your values for the year.